back in the Clinton years when Clinton, he said the era of big government is over, and it just kept growing. And so I think it's long overdue. So I think he's going to go full, Javier Milei and take a chainsaw to it in Javier Milei's language. But it has to be done, and it just can't keep exponentially growing like this.
After that victory in the U.S. election, Donald Trump meeting President Biden at the White House very, very soon. We now know he's chosen the tech billionaire Elon Musk as head of his government efficiency department.
Your money is being wasted, and the Department of Government Efficiency is going to fix that. America's just not just going to be great. America is going to reach heights that it has never seen before. The future is going to be amazing.
And Elon Musk will have beside him the almost equally vocal Vivek Ramaswamy, who's another very, very keen Trump partisan. Let's first of all talk to Charlotte McDonald-Gibson, the Times US correspondent. Hello, Charlotte.
Hi, John.
Hi. So what are we expecting from this meeting, or reunion, Charlotte, should we call it, of the presidents? You wonder, what will he be tempted to ask and talk about Joe Biden and Donald Trump? What on earth will they be saying to each other?
Yes, I can't imagine it's going to be a particularly warm exchange. If we remember the last time they were in a room together, it was the debate, which spelled the end of Joe Biden's candidacy. And a lot has happened since then. For Joe Biden, I think it's going to be particularly tough because, he'd really staked his reputation on keeping Donald Trump out of office. And, at the end of the day, he did the exact opposite. So I think it's going to be a particularly painful meeting for President Biden and, quite a triumphant one for Mr. Trump. But we shall see the visuals. Let's see if who manages to hide their emotions, who shows their emotions. It will be very, very interesting to watch the body language on display there.
Yeah, the optics are going to be absolutely fascinating. Let's talk about the appointments now, the latest appointments. Charlotte, Elon Musk with Vivek Ramaswamy at his side. We were just looking because he posted, didn't he, on his X platform, Elon Musk, a picture of him looking like a corporate hitman with dark glasses on and a leather jacket. He's not coming in as a typical bureaucrat, is he?
Well, no, I mean, this is the language of social media. This is the language he speaks. He speaks in the language of memes. Even the name of the Department of Government Efficiency, it's Doge. It's the name of the government meme, a social media meme that became a cryptocurrency. So it's even baked into the name of this department. So yes, it's something completely different. And that, in a way, is why Trump has done it, because that's what he's trying to do. He is trying to do something completely different.
Yeah.
But whether or not bringing on board the world's richest man with a huge amount of companies which have government interests, whether that or not is, a good idea and a potential class of personalities there, we shall wait and see.
Yeah, he hasn't given a great deal of detail at all about how he's going to do what he's going to do, but he has spoken about cutting $2 trillion from the United States federal budget. Now, that is what you call an axe. And I've seen a quote from an American civil servant in the American media describing that he's anticipating something like, and I'm quoting now, a dystopian hellscape.
Yeah, we talk about austerity in the UK and the austerity in Europe, but, that's a hell of a budget cut that Elon Musk has proposed. Yeah, $2 trillion. And he himself has said that it could result in some pain, which could be an understatement. But I think, again, what it comes down to with all of these big electoral promises is this actually feasible? This department he's in, it's not part of the official government cabinet. He will be essentially an advisor, like a consultant on these sort of budget issues. Budget cuts have to go through the House. Are they going to approve a sort of mass $2 trillion cut? It's doubtful. So yeah, it's one of those things where we have the great headlines, but how is this going to work in practice? And how are him and Vivek Ramaswamy going to get on? These are two big outspoken egos. I'm just trying to pitch them both in a room together, trying to work out what to do, and it's quite mind-boggling.
Maybe they'll have to cut each other. Who knows? We shall see. Just a word on the guy who's being picked as the lined-up Secretary of Defense. His name is Pete Hegseth, and he's a TV host. Now, tell us a bit about him, because that is a very Trumpian appointment, which may not be straightforward when it comes to confirmation on Capitol Hill.
Yes, exactly. When we look at the foreign policy team, there are some, reasonably mainstream sensible-ish picks. There's Marco Rubio in the position of Secretary of State. He's got background as a member of the Senate Foreign Relations and Intelligence Committees. But yes, Pete Hegseth is really, his experience in defense is that he's a veteran and that he served in Afghanistan and Iraq, and that's basically it. Then he became a Fox News host. So his experience is somewhat lacking, shall we say, especially at a time when, foreign policy, Ukraine, Israel is going to be so much at the forefront of what's going on that it'll be interesting to see if that is one of the appointments that does get some pushback.
All right. Great to talk to you, Charlotte. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Charlotte McDonald Gibson, the Times US correspondent, speaking to us from stateside. Now, let me get the thoughts now of Greg Swenson from Republicans Overseas. He's joined me right here in our studio. Good to see you, Greg. Thank you
Great
for
to
coming
be
in.
here. Thanks.
Lovely to have you here. Look, Donald Trump very much doing it his way, isn't he? I mean, how are you feeling about the Trump team as it's beginning to take shape now?
Yeah, so far so good, and I think it's a lot better than 2017 when he was kind of new at this, to say the least, and probably surprised that he won. A lot of us were surprised. So this time, he had a lot more time to prepare. He's had a term in office to get the hang of it, and so I think this is really refreshing, seeing some very forward-thinking people like Vivek and Elon Musk, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember a good long while ago, because I've got a very long memory, Margaret Thatcher forming her first cabinet, and she said that a new leader has to learn to carve the joint. So we've now got Elon Musk, it seems, coming in with the job of reshaping a government, making it more efficient. And we're not talking so much about carving the joint here. We're talking about getting out a chainsaw.
Yeah,
does that concern you?
It doesn't concern me. I hope it works. Execution is what's key here. And look, administrations on both sides of the aisle have been talking about this forever. Al Gore talked about it. He was back in the Clinton years when Clinton, he said the era of big government is over, and it just kept growing. And so I think it's long overdue. So I think he's going to go full, Javier Milei and take a chainsaw to it in Javier Milei's language. But it has to be done, and it just can't keep exponentially growing like this. Sure, Republicans tend to cut back on bureaucracy or attempt to. They deregulate a bit, but it doesn't do much when every term we look back and say could have done a lot more.
When he said, almost that he was going to cut $2 trillion.
Yeah.
He didn't say whether that was over a year or 10 years. So that's really quite important context.
Yeah,
we have to wait and see.
Yeah, right now it's just there's a lot of big talk, and that's great to hear. They're optimistic. They're big thinkers. Both of those guys, and so I'm excited about it. And there's $2 trillion sounds like a lot, but this is a federal government that spends $7 trillion a year.
Yes.
Most of it's on waste, right? And the other thing they're ignoring right now, I hope they don't, is entitlement reform. Medicare and Social Security. Those are the big elephants in the room. So you can cut a lot of waste, but if you don't touch those entitlements, they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, you didn't
the
quite,
actual systems.
Right, you didn't quite say that. I can remember when $1 trillion was a lot of money.
Yeah, I was thinking it.
You were thinking. Now, look, what about the man who, assuming he's confirmed, and that isn't absolutely certain at this point, Pete Hegseth, who will be the new Secretary of Defense. Fantastically important job.
Yeah.
In some ways, you can argue the most important job around that table after the president himself. He is a TV host. He wants to chop the defense commitments, and he wants to purge the military of woke generals and woke ways. Again, that will send chills down backs in the Pentagon.
It probably will, and it should, and because it's really gotten out of hand, especially in the last 4 years in the Biden administration. The focus on DEI and all this other kind of nonsense that people are frustrated. It's the last place you'd think that DEI and all the other stuff that goes with it would be important, right? It's the military. They have a mission. It should be kind of a singular focus.
Yeah.
So I think they've lost their way a little bit, and this will be a good effort. The Pentagon is it's bloated. I would argue they need to be spending more money on defense. We've had 3 years in a row of 3% defense cuts. We're below 3% of GDP. This is a much more dangerous world than it was 4 years ago. So we should be spending more, but we should be spending more with an ear or an eye on cost cutting and just efficiency. That's all.
Yeah, DEI, we should make clear to anyone who doesn't know, it is diversity, it is equity, it is inclusivity, it is fairness. That's the other point of the concept. And it's argued that all of that sort of thing has been overstated. It's not a culture absolutely running through everything that the Defense Department does. It's been made and amplified and exaggerated by Donald Trump's team. And in the name of attacking DEI and woke thinking, we're going to see things like the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, sacks. We're going to see, it is suggested in some reports today, generals being purged by perhaps some new board made up of retired generals and former sergeants and sergeant majors. It's been compared to a purge of the kind that Stalin did back in the day. It sounds pretty scary.
I think it sounds scarier than it is, and I think that they're talking a big game right now. I don't think it will be that radical, but there are some generals that have just spent too much time in the bureaucracy. They're not really war fighters, but they've got a breast full of medals. And yet, look back at Eisenhower, he had one medal. And these guys are basically administrators. And so, again, it's just a bloated bureaucracy, like many federal bureaucracies. So I think if you're going to take it to the whole bureaucracy, you have to take it, you have to look at every part of Washington, and the Pentagon is a big part of it.
All right. It's the beginning of big changes. Greg Swenson from Republicans Overseas. Good to talk to you. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.